Humans produce more than 1.3 billion tons of trash each year, more of it in the United States than anywhere else. This number on the human output of waste is expected to rise to 4 billion by the next century. Of these abundant numbers, more than 8 million tons of plastic are dumped into the oceans each year. The problem of ocean pollution will soon easily rival the problem of climate change if we continue to live obliviously in our wasty ways. Throughout the world, and especially in the US, pollution is not something that is new to us. The United States has a long history in trying to combat and solve pollution, tracing all the way back to the mid-1800s. Back then, Americans lived oblivious to the problem they were gradually worsening, dumping waste into our oceans and landfills, thinking that they were bottomless. Although we cannot change the mistakes we have made in the past, we must learn from them. Today, the largest problem we face is in the accumulation of plastic. The plastic in the ocean has become a massive problem, resulting in the killing of animals and fouling of waterways and beaches. We have only begun to scratch the surface in solving this problem, but solutions are in reach if we connect our historical processes with the problems we face today. This way, we gain new perspective and insight on ocean pollution as a whole, allowing us to address and face these problems effectively. Many have only recently become familiar with the problem of ocean pollution, but its roots date back to the arrival of our earliest ancestors. With the exponential growth of populations, diseases and epidemics break out as a result of unsanitary conditions due to the increase in human waste and garbage. By the 1800s, people began to realize that this way of living needed to change. As cities became safer, people flocked in. This led to a time of great industrialization which brought upon a new problem: waste from industries and factories. Continuing on into the 20th century, the industrialized way of living in America continued to increase the severity of the pollution. In 1936, the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland became so polluted with toxic and industrial waste it caught on fire. A 1969 fire at the same location was the most significant. This fire prompted the nation to become involved as they began to see how big of a problem the contamination was. News, magazines, and the general public spearheaded a movement which led to the creation of the 1972 Clean Water Act. This act established the basic structure for regulating discharges of pollutants into U.S. waters. Another thing it did was set a minimum on the standards for waste for each industry, and it also brought upon regulations for problems such as toxic chemicals and oil spills. If these fires failed to garner national attention, a point could be made that ocean dumping could still be a major contributor to the destruction of our oceans today. Prior to 1972, the ocean was used as a dumping ground and waste disposal for many communities around the world. Chemical, industrial, and radioactive waste were all being dumped in the ocean as it was assumed that marine waters had an unlimited capacity. Waters around the U.S. are highly concentrated with harmful pollutants including heavy metals, inorganic nutrients, and chlorinated petrochemicals. In 1972, Congress enacted the Ocean Dumping Act, which aimed to regulate the dumping of all materials in American waters that would unreasonably degrade or endanger human health, welfare or amenities, or the marine environment, ecological systems, or economic potentialities. Today, only few materials are being legally dumped in the ocean as those materials are carefully evaluated to ensure that they will not endanger the environment. Another problem the ocean faces is in the accumulation of plastic. Since plastic production began in the 1950s, plastic debris has been accumulating all over the ocean. For more than 50 years, global production and consumption of plastics have risen. Plastic was introduced because it is versatile, lightweight, flexible, strong, and inexpensive. However, the majority of people are oblivious to the fact of how plastic materials are very durable and very slow to degrade. Every year, 8 million tons of plastic end up in our oceans. That number is equivalent to 5 grocery bags filled with plastic for every foot of coastline in the world. The scary thing is that this number is only expected to grow. Swirled by currents, winds, and waves, lightweight plastic litter accumulates over time at the center of major ocean vortices, forming patches of garbage. The most famous one is known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which extends from the west coast of North America all the way to Japan. It's crazy how this whole thing just keeps growing and not much can be done about it. From turtles, whales, fish, and birds to tiny organisms like zooplankton, all are being affected because of the plastic problem. That at least 267 different animal species are known to have been threatened because of plastic. When plastic lands in the ocean, it breaks into microparticles that cause toxins to enter the food chain. This happens when these toxic and broken down particles are mistaken for food and ingested by millions of small organisms. Big fish eat little fish, and if you continue this idea, these toxins eventually end up on our dinner plates. In recent years, there has been a considerable amount of effort made to save our marine environment. Julie Anderson of the Los Angeles Times said that the longer-term solution is not just to recycle more, it is to use less. We call this the upstream solution. By reducing the amount of plastic we use, we make a more profound impact on the environment than by recycling. We have made strides towards change, but this change will never be significant if there is no change within our culture. We do not live in a way where we are conscious about how our actions are affecting the environment because we are so used to buying based on what we need individually. The good thing is that there are solutions out there. We need to be mindful of the way we live, consuming less plastic, and ultimately creating a better and healthier planet for ourselves and generations to come.